I'm 82 years old, and I still know the difference between a man who builds something and a man who waits for someone else to finish so he can take it. I was a mechanic for 41 years, not the kind who just replaces parts, the kind who listens to an engine and hears what's wrong before he ever opens the hood. You develop a sense for things when you work with your hands long enough. You learn to trust what you feel before you can prove what you know. That sense is what saved me. That sense is what Tyler never counted on, because he looked at me and saw an old man with shaking hands and slow steps. And he forgot that the hands and the steps are not the man. I built this house over the course of 11 years, starting in my early 40s. Weekends, evenings, every hour I could spare after the shop closed. Margaret used to bring me coffee in a thermos and sit on an overturned bucket and watch me work. She never complained about the sawdust or the noise or the winters when we were still sleeping in the rental down the road while the framing went up. She just watched and sometimes handed me things and sometimes said nothing at all, which was the best kind of company. She passed 4 years ago, and the house has been quieter in ways that don't have a name. Her coffee mug is still on the same shelf in the kitchen where she always kept it. I never moved it. Some things stay where they belong. When Tyler showed up in February with a duffel bag and a story about losing his job and his apartment in the same month, I told him to come in. He was 24 years old and looked exhausted in the way young people look when the world has hit them for the first time and they don't yet know how to absorb it. I saw my daughter Carol's eyes in his face, and that was enough. I didn't ask questions. I showed him the guest room and told him to get some sleep. That's what you do when family shows up at the door. You don't make it a transaction. The first few weeks were fine. Tyler was polite, helped carry things, sat with me in the evenings and watched the news. I thought, this is good. It's been a long time since someone else's footsteps moved through this house, and there was something that eased in me when they did. But there were small moments I noticed and set aside. He picked up Margaret's mug one morning and said, "Grandpa, this thing is ancient. I'll get you a new one." I took the mug from his hand, put it back on the shelf, and said nothing. He smiled like I was being sentimental. Maybe I was. But some things don't get replaced just because someone newer decided they should be. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and tell me, where are you watching this from? I see people from all over the Midwest, from the South, from places I've never been, all watching stories like this one. That tells me something. This isn't just my story. My father used to say that a house isn't what it's made of. It's what happened inside it. This house remembers everything. It remembers the sound of Margaret's slippers on the kitchen floor at 6 in the morning. It remembers the summer our daughter Carol learned to ride a bike in the driveway and crashed 3 times before she got it, and then rode straight to the end of the block without stopping, laughing the whole way. It remembers Thanksgiving tables too full for the room, and arguments that got resolved before anyone left, and a life that was built the same way the house was built, slowly, deliberately, with materials you chose yourself. You can't put a number on that. You can't find it in a legal description of property, and you cannot take it from the man who made it, just because his hands shake a little now. By March, I started noticing the phone calls. Tyler would step outside or pull the bedroom door nearly shut when his phone rang. I didn't think much of it at first. Young people are private about their conversations, and I wasn't the kind to press. But the calls were long and frequent, and one afternoon I passed the hallway and heard something I couldn't unhear. "He hasn't signed yet. I need a little more time." I stopped walking. I stood still and listened to the silence that followed. That wasn't a call about work. That wasn't a call about friends. That was a call about me. I kept walking. I didn't change my expression. But something shifted in me in that hallway, quietly and completely, the way an engine shifts when one thing stops working and the whole system compensates. The visitors started in April. Men I didn't recognize would come to the door, stand on the porch for 10 or 15 minutes, talk to Tyler in low voices, and leave. No introductions, no explanations. Once I came around the side of the house while Tyler was talking to a man in a gray jacket, and I said, "Everything all right?" Tyler smiled and said, "Just a friend, Grandpa. Nothing to worry about." I nodded, said okay, went back inside. But I watched from the front window as the man got into his car and pulled away. And I saw him check something on his phone and make a call before he'd even reached the stop sign. That was not a friend. I don't know what he was, but he wasn't a friend. The third week of April, Tyler brought me a document to sign. He said it was something the state required for elderly residents, a form related to home care benefits. He placed several pages in front of me, small print, dense paragraphs, and pointed to a line near the bottom. He said, "Just your signature there, Grandpa. It's standard." I picked up the pages. I put on my glasses. I began reading from the top. Tyler shifted in his chair. He said, "You don't need to read all of that. It's just formalities." I looked up at him over my glasses and said, "I've been signing documents since before your father was born. I read everything." I took the papers to my bedroom and closed the door. I sat at the edge of the bed and read every word. It was not a state form. It was a durable power of attorney, a document that would remove my legal authority over my own assets and transfer decision-making to Tyler as my designated representative, with full authority to execute real estate transactions on behalf of the principal. My house, my property, my name on someone else's pen. I read it 3 times to make sure I was understanding it correctly. I was. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, not panicking, not angry, not yet, just feeling the weight of it settle. There's a particular kind of grief that comes not from loss, but from betrayal, and it's heavier than most because it carries disbelief inside it. You look at a person you've known since they were born, and you try to reconcile what you know about them with what you're holding in your hands. I thought about the evenings watching the news together. I thought about Margaret's eyes in his face. I thought about the duffel bag in February, and I understood that some of what I had believed was real, and some of it had been performance. I couldn't know which was which anymore. And that, more than the house or the document, was what hurt. What would you have done in that moment? If you were sitting in that room, in the dark, with those papers, would you have walked out and told him to leave? Called the police? Called the rest of the family? Think about it honestly, because what I chose to do was none of those things. And I believe if you think about it carefully, you'll understand why. That night, I made one decision. I would not let him know that I knew. I would change nothing on the surface. I would continue to be the same old grandfather, slow, a little forgetful, easy to underestimate. Because if Tyler realized I had found the documents, he would either accelerate his plan or go underground with it. I needed evidence, not suspicion, not a document I hadn't signed, but real and documented proof of intent that would hold up to scrutiny. In the morning, I handed the papers back and said, I need a few more days to think it over. My head hasn't been great lately. Tyler said, Of course, Grandpa, no rush. But there was a tightness around his jaw that told me there was rush. He'd been careful up until then. That small slip was important. That afternoon, I walked to the gas station on the corner and used the payphone there. I didn't want Tyler seeing any numbers on the house phone. I called Ray Callahan, a man I'd worked alongside at the shop for 12 years before he left to go to law school, which we all thought was the strangest thing anyone we knew had ever done. Ray had been a mechanic and then became an attorney. And he was the right person for exactly this reason. He understood what it was to work with your hands, and he understood the law, and he knew how to talk to someone like me without making me feel like I was the problem. I told him what had happened in a low voice, standing next to the air pump. He listened without saying anything until I finished. Then he said, Arthur, come see me tomorrow. Bring the documents. The next 3 weeks were the longest kind of work I've ever done, the kind where the effort is invisible and the progress is invisible, and you have to trust the process entirely. Every morning I woke up and put on the role, slower, more confused, easier to dismiss. Tyler relaxed into his assumptions. He started leaving papers on the kitchen table when he went out. He took calls with the bedroom door only partly closed. One evening, I found on the counter a printed page from a real estate website showing estimated property values in the county, with my address typed into the search field and a figure circled in pen. I photographed it with the simple phone Ray's paralegal had brought me, a basic flip phone, no internet, no apps, used only for photos and one number. I kept a small notebook in the inside pocket of my jacket and wrote down dates, names I heard, descriptions of the men who came to the door. I was building a case the same way I used to build an engine, part by part, in order, without skipping steps. Ray laid it out plainly. The power of attorney Tyler had prepared was legally valid upon signature. Once signed, he would have the authority to initiate a property transfer, and challenging it after the fact would require a civil proceeding that could take years and would put the burden of proof on me. We need him on record with intent, Ray said. The unsigned document alone just proves you were careful. We need more. I understood exactly what he meant. Ray's colleague, an active attorney who handled elder law, came to the house one evening when Tyler was out. We went through everything methodically. I signed a formal declaration establishing that I had no intention of granting any power of attorney or transferring property to any individual. We notarized it with a witness. We organized the photographs, the notebook entries, the copy of the power of attorney with a legal analysis of its provisions. Ray advised me to contact my daughter Carol, who lived 3 hours away. I called her from the flip phone and told her just enough. I said, Carol, I need you here next Saturday. It's important. Please don't tell Tyler you're coming. Tyler pushed again on a Thursday morning, sitting across from me at the kitchen table with the documents between us. He said, Grandpa, I really need you to sign this today. There's a deadline I'm working with. I looked at him over my coffee cup and said, Which papers are those again? He breathed out, a short, controlled exhale that he tried to make sound patient, but didn't quite manage it, and slid them toward me. He said, These, Grandpa. We talked about it. Remember? I picked them up, looked at them slowly, said, Give me until Saturday. Saturdays I feel clearer. He left the table without saying anything else. Saturday morning, Tyler was at the kitchen table with the papers in front of him, composed, certain that the day was finally going the way he'd planned it. He looked like a man who has run a long calculation and arrived at the correct answer. I came out of the bedroom moving slowly, one hand on the wall, the way I move when my hip is bothering me. But I wasn't alone. Ray came in behind me. Behind Ray came his colleague with a briefcase, and through the back door came Carol, who had arrived the night before and slept at the neighbor's house so Tyler wouldn't see her car. Tyler stood up. The confidence left his face the way color leaves a wall when the paint is stripped, completely and in one motion. He said, What is this? I sat down in my chair, slowly, carefully, with the difficulty that belongs to being 82, and said, This is the conversation we should have had at the beginning. The attorney opened the briefcase and laid everything out. The real estate search with my address and the circled figure, the notebook entries with dates and descriptions, the photographs, the copy of the power of attorney with the legal analysis attached, and my notarized declaration, dated 3 weeks earlier. Tyler looked at the documents without speaking. Carol stood by the doorway and looked at her son, and what was on her face was not anger. It was something I had never seen there before, a quiet, absolute shame that went deeper than anything anger could reach. She didn't say anything for a long time. Neither did I. Tyler tried to speak. He said he was trying to help me. He said the house was too much for one person, that I needed things he couldn't give me here, that he had plans that would have benefited us both. He said, It was for your own good, Grandpa. And those words landed harder than anything else he said. Because it is always those words, isn't it? It is always someone deciding what's good for you. It is always your age or your slowness or your silence being used as the reason why someone else should be making the decisions. As if 82 years of building things and repairing things and outlasting things counts for nothing the moment your hands begin to shake. I said one thing to him, and I said it without raising my voice. Tyler, I built this house with my own hands. Every wall, every floor, every piece of wiring in this building. Your grandmother watched me do it. I have lived here for 40 years. I will stay here for whatever time I have left. And that is my decision, made by me, not by anyone else, regardless of how convenient it would be for them if it were otherwise. Tyler left that afternoon with his bag. He didn't look back at the house when he walked to his car. Carol stayed for a week. I heard her crying quietly on the second night. I don't know if it was for him or for herself, for not having seen it sooner, or for having seen it and not wanted to look. Before she left, she said, "Dad, why didn't you call me earlier?" I said, "Because I needed to be sure of what I was seeing, and because I wanted this resolved the right way, not with a scene, with evidence, and with dignity." The legal consequences for Tyler were serious without rising to criminal charges. A formal record of attempted fraud, which followed him in ways I was told about secondhand. He moved away. Carol speaks to him occasionally because she is his mother, and that is her right. I haven't reached out, and I won't until he does something that is honest rather than useful. I live alone now, as I did before, but it isn't the same as before. Before, the solitude had a particular weight to it, the weight of absence, of a house that knew what it was missing. Now the solitude is different. It is quiet in a way that is mine. I get up in the mornings and make coffee the way Margaret taught me, with the right amount of grounds and enough time to steep. I drink it from her mug, which is on the shelf where it has always been, and where it will remain. I sit at the window and look at the yard I planted, the oak she picked out, the garden beds along the fence, the driveway where Carol learned to ride her bike. Everything is where it belongs. Everything I built is standing. Old age is not surrender. That is the most important thing I know at 82. The body slows, that's true, and there's nothing to argue with about it. The hands shake, the steps are careful, the eyes need more light. But the mind, if you keep feeding it, if you keep asking questions and refuse to accept that someone else should answer them for you, the mind holds. Maybe it sharpens even, because the noise of youth is gone, and what remains is just clarity. Young people move fast, and that is their gift and their vulnerability both. Old people wait. And patience, real patience, the kind that comes from having outlasted many things, is the most dangerous quality in the world to underestimate. I am 82 years old, and I still sleep in the house I built with my hands. Margaret is still here, in the way that people who shaped you never fully leave. And when I lie down at night and look up at the ceiling I put there myself, I feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. That I am where I am supposed to be, that I protected what actually mattered, not the square footage, not the property value, not the asset, but the proof that a life was lived here with intention and defended with the same. Has anyone ever tried to convince you that your age was sufficient reason for someone else to make your decisions? What did you do?